Joining us now, a man who has made a life study of crazy, author and columnist Mark Steyn. So first, to the president's fitness level. Is this, I mean, given everything that's going on, is this a legitimate critique, do you think, of the Trump presidency that he has no visible abs and too high a percentage of body fat?
Well, I think it represents his cultural offensiveness to his opponents. You'll recall that at one point when he was on the stump in Iowa, I think it was, Barack Obama said to his audience, "Have you seen what the price of arugula is today?" As you know, Barack Obama
really
was the first.
That's so good.
That did really happen. He was, in that sense, the first arugulan American to be elected president, and he had he advised his people around him, if they wanted to have the burger, that they should take the salad. Now, I regard this idea of presidents ostentatiously jogging and working out as rather preposterous. I never saw Winston Churchill jogging, and it didn't seem to affect his performance. And if you recall, when Barack Obama was in Warsaw, he was surreptitiously filmed in a gym supposedly bench pressing, and in fact he was lifting dainty little £1.5 weights in a rather and groaning as he was doing it, lifting these. Oh, a pound! I've got the £1.25 weight. I'll try and see if I can do the. Oh, I can't do it with the £1.5 weights. I would much rather Trump, who is a man at ease with himself, and demonstrated on the stump that he had incredible energy. I mean, we all know Hillary Clinton lost because in the last 2 months of the campaign, she hardly campaigned. Trump had tremendous energy, he was flying all over the place, he was doing these campaign stops. This is a cultural issue. They want to force Trump into eating arugula and jogging because he represents in that sense, the other side of the cultural divide.
I think that's exactly right. He likes fast food and Three Musketeers bars, and that's deeply offensive to them. Now, Louise Mensch, I almost don't want to single out any one person because there are so many conspiracy nuts on the left right now. But Louise Mensch was a member of Parliament and a published New York Times author, and kind of a serious person, I thought. And then somewhere along the line in the past year, she's taken to sending out statements like the one she did this morning that the death penalty is about to be applied to Steve Bannon. I guess 2 questions. What happened? And second, how can she be taken seriously by mainstream figures in the press still, given that she writes stuff like that?
Well, because I don't think there's any level of derangement that is too far to go. Everybody throws around the word treason with relation to Trump and the Russians, and the penalty for treason is death. And if you think about it, the left isn't invested with that Taliban guy who was arrested shortly after capturing in Afghanistan, shortly after 9/11. They weren't interested. He was actually fighting with America's enemies in Afghanistan. But nobody wanted to hang that guy because treason of that kind isn't serious to the left. Whereas if you have tiramisu with Putin at a G20 banquet, you should fry for that. That's the position of the left now. And if you think about it, once you follow that path, that somehow meeting with any Russian, as you were talking about the other night, Tucker, if it's a crime to meet with any Russian, if it's treason to meet with any Russian, if the penalty for treason is death, then Louise Mensch is right, and Trump is heading for the chair. That's the logic of where the left is on this.
But, I mean, I think you're younger than I am, but I think you're still old enough to remember when Russia, then called the Soviet Union, swallowed up half of Europe, was under a cloud of darkness and oppression. And I seem to recall for 70 years the left taking their side, making excuses for them, attacking people who attacked them. How did this happen? How did Russia become the enemy among people who always defended Russia?
Because in the end, as with all these things, the left's real enemy is domestic. So the left is quite happy to make common cause with Islamic radicalism when Islamic radicals have an objection to right-wing Americans. And in exactly the same way, they had no interest in Russia until it quite opportunistically served their needs in terms of getting Trump. As you say, throughout where were these guys 40 years ago? 40 years ago, they were seriously arguing in fact, somebody argued just the other day that they seem to think the Berlin Wall was the equivalent of the Mexican Wall, because to leftists, the purpose of the Berlin Wall was to keep West Germans from flooding inside and enjoying the benefits of life behind the Iron Curtain. And so we now have and the poor old East Germans had to build that Berlin Wall to keep all the Western Europeans from flooding into it. We all know how they were shot at Checkpoint Charlie. West Germans, Frenchmen, Italians trying to get inside the Warsaw Pact. That was what the left did at the time. Now they're saying that if Trump goes to a summit of world leaders and he's seen talking to a world leader, then that is somehow treason, and that guy is headed for the chair.
Well, the weird part is that the health care initiative just failed, at least for the moment, yesterday. And you can lay part of the blame on that at the White House, I think. I mean, there are cases you could make against the Trump White House, but they're not making any of them in favor of something that's so ludicrous that it humiliates them when they articulate it. I don't who's making the strategy over there. It's insane.
Yeah, because there's actually an interesting story here that Trump's main problem, in a way, is that there's a Republican Party, significant parts of the leadership of which have no interest in seeing the Trump presidency succeed. And in a sense, they're inflicting quite a lot of damage and obstruction on him. And you'd have thought that in itself would be an interesting enough story for CNN to cover. Instead, they're saying, oh, look, he went to the G20 summit and he was supposed to be sitting next to the Argentine First Lady, and he sat with her for 2 courses, and then in dessert, he wandered over and he started talking to Putin. Can you believe that? The Russians are so deep into this guy that they've arranged to have a clandestine meeting at a world summit. You know, it's the equivalent of Prince William and Kate being seen talking together at their wedding. That's what it is. You go to the summit to meet Putin, and apparently that is now a conspiracy. There's actually a fascinating story here of what happens when an independent president, who in effect hijacks the Republican Party for his own purposes, wins over 17 candidates, takes the White House, and then finds that Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell somehow don't seem to be able to advance his policy in Congress. If we had a sane media in the United States, that's what they'd be talking about.
It's an amazing story. And by the way, it's not necessarily a pro-Trump story, but they're not reporting it because it's not Putin-related. It's demented, actually. Mark, thanks a lot for joining us, as always.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.